Well, good morning, everyone. I'm very excited to be with you today as we celebrate our freedom. Happy 4th of July, all the way from Canada. I learned some fun facts about Independence Day, starting with Thomas Jefferson, who wrote most of the Declaration of Independence. I didn't know that. And 56 people signed the Declaration, the eldest of which was Benjamin Franklin of Franklintown, Pennsylvania. He was 70 years young at the time. He wanted the national bird to be a turkey. I never knew that. He believed that the bald eagle was a bird of bad moral character, and the turkey was a much more respectable bird. The 4th of July is the most celebrated American holiday and the most popular day for grilling out. It is estimated that, such an important piece of trivia, 150 million hot dogs will be consumed. I love this one the most. The torch held in the Statue of Liberty represents enlightenment, lighting the path to liberty and freedom, as most know. But the official name is Liberty Enlightening the World. The Declaration of Independence, unanimously signed in 1776 by all 13 colonies, begins. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with the other, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident. It says that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by the Creator and with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, our CSL theme for July is pulled by vision. And excuse me, in the teachings of science of mind and spirit, we hold these same truths. We say it is self-evident that all are created equal by an all-powerful, all-creative, unconditional, everywhere present, no preference on gender, race, religion, and that alone is, don't you think, a vision that pulls us forward. Today, I'd like to begin at the beginning with preparing ourselves, not for battle, but for change through opening ourselves to a vision. So a vision, what is that? Well, I thought about it, and these are the things that I came up with. A higher calling that resonates at a soul level, which we choose to follow without angst. Something that pulls us out of our small self and challenges our faith. Something that has just appeared within our mind with no laborious searching or willfully followed set intention. Is a vision a part of a divine plan instilled within our soul's evolution, which makes itself known when we are ready? I'm wondering what you think a vision is. Being receptive to catch a new vision or greater vision for our lives comes only after we first ground ourselves in the truth of who we are, with conviction. It is in the process we experience a profound increase in our energy output, our inspiration, our, as Holmes says, our cheerful expectancy and availability for our becoming or our next yet to be. If we reflect upon our history, the experience and choices that have led right where we are today, we will see more clearly how often our former fears and hurts have come to be a blessing. When unwanted circumstances can be experienced without judgment, it can lead to growth. We have heard the saying that oftentimes pain pushes until faith pulls. We could look at it as the spiritual variable between being motivated or inspired. We are seriously motivated to change our lives when we've hit the ceiling of our pain, or we are seriously inspired through listening to the intuitive knowing from our heart wisdom. Recently, I have been clearing the windshield into embracing my own humanity. I have experienced an unfamiliar, lengthy string of emotional intensity, topped off with a few explosions, I might add, and have decided it is because I am imploding, recalibrating, right along with the rest of humanity, or so I'd like to think. And as this world opens up, perhaps we, are releasing the emotion around our coping mechanisms. And many are apprehensively stepping back out. It is here I find myself passing through thoughts of judgment and feelings of guilt that come up for air on the other side. And how I'm doing that is by honoring the movement of energy in and through me. I presently label this energy the belly of my shadow rising to clear the way for acceptance and fresh intention. And the shadow for me is anything that I've suppressed. Anything. It may be fabulous qualities I've yet to experience, or it may be things that I have judgment upon, and so I hide. Now, I asked myself, was it a coincidence that I was heavily into the Netflix series called Lucifer at this time? Oh, the devil made me do it. Yes, yes. You know, I don't know if some of you have turned to Netflix over this period of hibernation, but I quite enjoyed this series and have recommended it to many people. You know, Lucifer was a fallen angel, right? His name was bright light. Lucifer means bright light, but he was a fallen angel, right? And he reigned as the Lord in hell for millennia. And he blamed his father God for casting him out of heaven. The powers he was given as a celestial was knowing what people deeply desired, and he fulfilled those desires. And as it turns out, along in the series as you go, these desires and things that he uprooted in other people's souls were indeed the lessons he needed to give himself. There was one point in the series where, when he learned that his father was going to retire, that he decided he wanted to be God for all the wrong reasons, primarily to feel worthy of a human's love. You know, he fought, he manipulated for the position, but he was losing amongst his siblings until such time as he put the love of another first, did he not regain his wings and his rightful place as Lucifer, the bright light. You know, that God's divine plan was to let man discover for himself the power of his own beliefs and how that creates reality, that man becomes self-actualized, was exactly where the script went in Lucifer. It also said and showed that it was guilt in the individual, in the mind of the individual, that thrust people into hell. But when they accepted and loved themselves, forgave themselves, they were transported to heaven. It's a fabulous series. I really do recommend it. So how can we move into living our lives feeling inspired and pulled by a vision? By preparing the way. Preparing the way. One of the things that came up in a class that I recently taught, I'm searching for that. Wasn't sure if it was that or a practitioner meeting, but was we should hang out all are welcome. We should hang out that welcome sign. We should set a place at the table for perceived obstacles, enemies, our smallest nuance, and our worst nightmares. But, mind, set the table with love and the willingness to trust in the law of cause and effect, meaning each of us must be accountable for how we participate in causing our own results. So just imagine now the sign is out. All are welcome. And now we wait. Enter the first guest. Not necessarily the one you'd hoped for, intended, or faithfully prayed for, but just notice your reaction in thought and feeling, and how you might want to push it away. And then instead surprise yourself and say, welcome in. Come on in. Let's have a conversation and see if we can't meet in the middle as a place to begin. Have you noticed that you often perceive conflict where there is none? And rather, in retrospect, understand it's a projection of your own thought and belief system, reflecting its, sometimes haunting face right back at us. And sometimes it reflects as perceived love. When the true blessing, our opportunity to come home to ourselves most truly, is hiding beneath this perceived love. In either case, avoiding conflict is actually a privilege for many of us. And this choice does not make a compassionate and equitable society. We're all painfully aware what happens when we avoid the inevitable decisions we must make in our lives. When in matters of society, the least of us doesn't speak up to injustice. It ripples outward, gathering a fast spreading moss of dissent, of separation, of resistance, and retaliation. But knowing that conflict always begins and ends first within our own mind, we can make a blessed choice. I believe it is in the space between speaking the principle and living the principle that can be really messy in the ways we express and think as we demonstrate the principle to embody it towards the final stages. It's the gap. It is in the gap that we find our growing edge. And soon, sometimes sooner than what seems like the blink of an eye, the switch will flip and we will have released the need to be pushed and be filled instead with inspiration and faith towards a higher vision of living. Greg Lavoie, he's one of my favorite authors. He's written over 20 books. He began as a geologist, or as he likes to call it, an earth scientist. And he speaks to what is happening right now on our planet in global consciousness and what is ours to do as free will individuals. Back in the 70s, he studied huge natural cycles of time and how we interact with nature. He says we are living this rare convergence of three massive cycles of change right now, and that any one of these cycles on their own would turn the world as we know it upside down. And the fact that these three cycles are converging gives us the need to think creatively. These three cycles are climate, economics, where we work together to share info and resources. And the third cycle is human conflict. Science shows that human conflict ebbs and flows following the rhythm of magnetic fields between the sun and the earth and the human heart. He states that the human heart is the strongest magnetic field in the body, 5,000 times more powerful than the brain. Magnetic fields of the earth are strong And at that time, we are cooperative and less aggressive. When they are weak, which is true right now, the reverse is true. We are less cooperative and more aggressive. However, we are also at this time more vulnerable to the presence of peace as well, if we do not allow ourselves to become susceptible to war, susceptible to being divided against ourselves, divisiveness within and without. So, friends, if you've been wondering what the bleep is going on within you at this time of re-emerging, of opening, Greg LeBois believes that that's what's going on. He says, we can't stop the cycles. Just like we can't control the how and when our creative process unfolds as we're placing our order into the universal law, but we can respond consciously using our free will. The good news is that we are self-referencing, self-actualizing individuals. The challenge is found in the fact that we have been taught to rely on what is happening outside of us to determine our decisions. So that when the world out there begins to change and we don't know who we are, life can be frightening. Greg says that we're globalizing the planet. We're mushing cultures, people, religions, the way we think about gender identity all together. And we simply can't embrace these changes through obsolete thinking. We will not fear the unknown if we don't fear our inner power. And now is the time to delve into and discover and access and apply that inner power. There is wisdom in the uncertainty that we feel as we're doing this, because in the uncertainty we can find the freedom to create anything we desire. It is the fertile ground of pure creativity and freedom. Without uncertainty and the unknown, life is just a stale repetition of outworn memories as we cling only to the known of our past. In that state of uncertainty, we are alert. We are much more alert with present moment awareness, right? And it's here that the field of uncertainty, or pure potentiality, meets with our goal and our intention, and allows us to seize the seed of opportunity for some greater benefit in our life, opening us up to listen to and have the courage to be pulled by vision. We can't go back, right? Even the things that worked in the way we did church before aren't working as well as when we left them. As the energy of recalibration is in the collective consciousness driving us inward to ask the question more deeply than ever before, who am I being right now, and how can I embrace my inner power instead of fear and trepidation? It's a blessing to be in community, spiritual community. We get to watch how the ego watches, interprets the ego, and break the spell by open-hearted connection, conversations that are honest and transparent in sharing what dissolves our own ego defenses. We get to make it up. That has never changed, and we continue to do so. But in spiritual community, we get to hold, and we are held in the space for us to grapple with this idea of, ego perfectionism, to come down off our ego thrones and join the others and walk with them, to learn to be a servant leader, to do our own spiritual, emotional, psychological work, and take charge of our own life by releasing judgment and being curious, by being attentive to our own needs, and by being gentle with the self. We've been taught through the theory of evolution that human life has very little value, that humans are a random process of genetic mutations. That's the scientific definition. And the scientific definition of life is a behavior pattern that chemical systems reach at a certain level of complexity. Think of that. That is the scientific definition of life. A behavior pattern that chemical systems reach at a certain level of complexity. Now, if that isn't a sterile definition, taking away all the specialness and preciousness of life, most especially in the face of the fact that DNA is telling us something far beyond random. Here's the question, though. How am I instilling the preciousness of life in our young people as they grow more reluctantly attached to technology? By enacting that our power in change resides within our belief and acceptance of our capacity to create our reality and adapt to and thrive through change. By the belief that we are right now being pulled by vision, that our life is lived right now as the highest spiritual principle, which is love. By ensuring that our social action matches our spiritual knowing of truth. By teaching through how we live, and knowing how we live becomes our prayer. This is our primary job. Always has been, always will be. Walking on the path of dissolving our belief in separation from God, from good, from universal wisdom, from abundance, and finding joy in it all as we do so. Preparing to be pulled by vision asks us to declare the principles upon which we freely choose as the foundation of our lives and demonstrate through self-evidence that all are created equal by an all-powerful, all-creative, unconditional, everywhere present universal intelligence, an omniscient, omnipotent power with no preferences on gender, race, religion, that in and of itself is whole, complete, and perfect, creating out of itself infinite diversely expressed forms as us through the powerful words of our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes. I invite you to listen to his declaration of principles on this day of freedom and see which of these principles resonates with you. We believe in God, the living Spirit Almighty, one indestructible, absolute, and self-existent cause. This one manifests itself in and through all creation, but is not absorbed by its creation. The manifest universe is the body of God. It is the logical and necessary outcome of the infinite self-knowingness of God. We believe in the incarnation of the Spirit in us, and that all people are incarnations of this one Spirit. We believe in the eternality, the immortality, and the continuity of the individual soul forever and ever expanding. We believe that heaven is within us and that we experience it to the degree that we become conscious of it. We believe the ultimate goal of life is to be a complete emancipation from all discord of every nature, and that this goal is sure to be attained by all. We believe in the unity of all life, and that the highest God and the innermost God is one God. We believe that God is personal to all who feel this indwelling presence. We believe in the direct revelation of truth through our intuitive and spiritual nature, and that anyone may become a revealer of truth who lives in close contact with the indwelling God. We believe that the universal spirit, which is God, operates through a universal mind, which is the law of God, and that we are surrounded by this creative mind, which receives the direct impress of our thought and acts upon it. We believe in the healing of the sick through the power of this mind. We believe in the control of conditions through the power of this mind. We believe in the eternal goodness, the eternal loving kindness, and the eternal givingness of life to all. We believe in our own soul, our own spirit, and our own destiny, for we understand that our life is God. Life is a blessing, and so are you, my friends. And so it is. Amen.